Let's begin tonight by stepping into a world shaped by relentless heat, blackened faces, and a man who helped mold the very fabric of the Middle Ages, the blacksmith. You may picture them from films, hammering metal while golden sparks dance in the air. But let me reassure you, the actual life of a real medieval blacksmith was far from glorious. Behind every glowing stroke was hard, punishing work, dirty, grueling, and often miserable. Before we settle in for this story, if what I share tonight brings you any joy, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'd love to hear where and when you're tuning in from. It always amazes me to see our little gathering come together from so many corners of the world. Now, perhaps dim your lights, maybe turn on a gentle fan, and let us drift together into another time. Imagine being born into a family of blacksmiths, handed no titles, wealth, or land. Only the soot-stained workshop, battered hands, and the forever scent of hot iron in your very first blanket. As soon as you learn to walk without falling into the fire, you're expected to pitch in. By the time you turn 6, you officially become your father's apprentice, which is an old-fashioned way of saying you're now a tiny worker, unpaid and ever smudged with soot. Instead of toys, you pick up pincers. Your playground is the dirty earth beside a glowing furnace, so hot it threatens your eyebrows. While other children play outside, you are mastering how not to get hurt by molten metal. There are lessons, too. Guess how hot this is. Swing the hammer for as long as you can, and try not to sob if your nail gets bent. Your father, towering, silent, and strong, his face hardened from years in the smoke and from dealing with officials, teaches by example. He reveals how to craft iron, nurture the flames, and keep silent when a noble complains. You don't ask questions. You simply notice, you absorb, and you follow orders. Questions earn you a cold horseshoe tossed your way, or bitter silence. Holidays? Those exist for other people. The forge is forever busy, and so are you. There's always something to repair or rebuild. You learn that free time is only the gap between one job and the next. Although you're meant to be learning, a trade and a future, in truth, what you're really learning is how much pain you can handle, how to bear the heat, and how to rest while standing. By 10, you already carry the smell of metal, speak with a sharp tongue, and haul water buckets that seem heavier than your loyal dog, if it hasn't already run off to escape the endless clangor. This, now, is your future. Welcome to the world of sweat, smoke, and a lifetime of aches. If you thought you'd enjoy gentle years of play before the hammer called, you were mistaken. For a young blacksmith, childhood is a brief suggestion, one that quickly passes. If you can handle a bucket, you're drafted. Forget games or toys or any carefree fun. Your world is a dark, smoke-filled hut crowded with sharp tools and burning coal. Each day there's a risk, step wrong, and you learn firsthand how long before a burn blisters your skin. Your apprentice title truly means do everything no one else wants and still get scolded. Stir the fire, work the bellows, sweep ashes, clean tools, stack fresh coal, try not to get hit by a falling horseshoe, all before your morning meal. Your reward? Food, the occasional approving nod, and perhaps a grunt if you're lucky, which means, in the forge's language, not too bad. Meanwhile, the children you used to know run in the fields, play games, help in the pastures. You envy their simpler chores, their cleaner hands, even their earthy smell. They might become farmers or herders, simple jobs, but ones that don't threaten burns, metal, and heavy tools. You, on the other hand, shape each nail by hand, countless nails, straightened, hammered, and redone to a noble standard. If you are fortunate, you're allowed your own hammer, always right after your father tells you exactly how you're doing it wrong. Never say, "I'm tired." In the forge, that phrase holds no meaning. Weariness is weakness. Exhaustion is for candles. You keep swinging, sweating, maybe even smiling, or at least not letting your tears show. To your master, who is also your father, you're not a child any longer. You are a blacksmith's hope, and the shaping never ends. The forge is more than a place to work. It consumes your senses, builds your muscles, and trains your mind. By your teenage years, it feels alive, a hot, noisy creature you must both serve and command. The noises become familiar, the bellows gasping, the iron sizzling, the hammer ringing out over and over. There's a pattern, a harsh melody, and your body moves with it, even if you are half asleep. After a while, you stop noticing the heat. Not because the work is easier, but because you've surrendered to it, like we all accept gravity or time. You know which stones are too hot to touch, which coals to use, which parts of the workshop might trip you up. Smoke darkens your skin. Your clothes, an old tunic and worn apron, carry the smell of burnt wool, oil, and sooty gloom. You own very little, but in a strange way, you belong to the forge. Your father rules it, but day by day, it claims your time, your strength. Silence feels unsettling. The sudden absence of hammer and hiss makes you twitch, like a song missing its beat. Your friends, if you have any left, hardly see you. By now, probably still working, is what people say instead of your name. For you, the forge is life, and sometimes you even come to love it. Not the aching blisters, but the moments where the metal finally bends as you wish. The horseshoe fits, the sword edge shines, the nail holds fast. For a brief instant, you are more than a sooty apprentice. You are a maker, vital, needed, shaping the world. Then the next job arrives, and the fires call you back. While your friends are just calling themselves teenagers, your body feels twice as old, stooped, battered, and aching. Your arms thicken, not in a heroic sense, but like someone who's taken too many beatings from metal and stone. Your back is curved, your knees click, your shoulders crack every time you raise the hammer, which is all the time, so these sounds become your new music. And your hands? Once soft and nimble, now you have iron-tipped paws, covered in blisters, split by heat and work, stained so deeply even the Nile could not wash them clean. Cuts, burns, and battered fingernails are normal. Some are blackened, some missing. When someone offers you bread, you hold it as tenderly as if it were made of glass, each joint already sore. There's no rest for pulled muscles or twisted wrists. You simply switch to the other arm and keep working. The forge doesn't care about your pain. Iron cools quickly, and after all that, sleep should come easily with so much labor, right? But no. Your body throbs, your ears ring, and your arms twitch as if they're still swinging even in dreams. You ache everywhere. Even your aches have their own aches. Your father's only wisdom about pain. Good, you are learning. Strangely, you are learning, not in spite of pain, but because of it. The hardship forges you, just as you forge metal, molded by heat, strain, and endless repetition. By the time you reach adulthood, you feel like you've lived 2 lifetimes before you've even started. The air in your world is yet another foe. In most trades, smoke is a nuisance. Here, it's more like an unpleasant companion. Every breath comes laced with coal dust, burnt iron, and a trace of regret. If you can see across your shop, it only means the fire's out. No chimney, just a hole in the roof, letting in as much smoke as it lets escape. There are no windows, just darkened walls and the usual coughs, yours and your father's. Your chest grows used to the burn. At first you cough, then you wheeze, but eventually it simply becomes your normal. Coughing fits just mark time. Even your voice gets rough. A scratchy, short wheeze as if your words are made of dust. But you carry on because you must. Not just fire makes the air thick. There's fine metal powder, oil vapors, the acrid stench of burnt leather, and all manner of strange fumes from whatever falls into the coals. Most days you might breathe 3 kinds of poison before midday. Protective gear? A rag tied around your face is the best you get, and even then, it grows sweaty and smells worse than the smoke. When you remove it, you find yourself coughing more, but at least you aren't struggling to breathe through your own sweat. Long term, this work means trouble. Asthma, damaged lungs, a shortened life. But you don't think about that. You worry about straightening the next gate hinge before your father sees your mistake. In the blacksmith's life, air is work. You breathe not to live, but to hammer. Soon enough, your tools feel almost alive, part friend, part enemy. Your hammer is nearly an extra limb now, a comfort and a curse. You've given it a name, uttered curses at it, swung it so many times that your shoulder now cracks whenever you pick it up. Without your hammer, you're just another tired soul in a smoky shed. It's what makes you the blacksmith, and what gives you new scars. Your tongs are clumsy, often burning your fingers or pinching them at the worst time. You burn yourself picking up hot iron as often as you succeed. Each slip, your grip fails. Your father says, "Hold it tighter." And for a moment you dream of tossing the tongs away. Your chisel, once sharp, has dulled to the shape of a suggestion. Every tool, every piece on your bench looks more like something from a torture chamber than a toolbox. You've been poked, crushed, sliced, and stuck by your own equipment so many times that your hands seem to flinch just at the sight of something new. Your apron? It sometimes shields you, but mostly it just traps stray metal splinters against your skin. Every winter, it stiffens, as if determined to punish you with cold. But despite all this, you carefully keep your tools sharp, oiled, and in order. If one fails, you don't work. If you don't work, you don't eat. So your tools, though they hurt you, are precious. You rely on them dearly, but they don't let you forget what they cost in pain and patience. And though you own no fine titles, carry no weapons, or command soldiers, everyone depends on you. Without the blacksmith, the village halts within days. You are the one folks turn to for every problem. You're the local helper, problem fixer, and all-purpose troubleshooter rolled into one soot-covered soul. A night requires a fresh blade? You shape it. The farmer snaps a plow? You mend it. The baker's oven won't close? You fix that too. They come with their troubles, always urgent, always expecting. Often, you receive little gratitude. People bring you work as if serving them is your duty, and walk away the moment it's done, leaving you with perhaps a nod and half a loaf of stale bread as payment. Or sometimes just promises, quickly forgotten. Someone brings you a bent gate from sitting too heavily. You repair it. Someone else hands you a broken dagger from a tavern fight. You fix it. Unidentifiable pieces of iron, still always your problem. Yet when praise is given, it's for the knight, the miller, the priest, never you. You are the quiet presence, the reliable hand in the background. But deep down, you know their lives would unravel without your craft. Looking out, you realize that your hands keep the fields running, the doors swinging, the animals shod. Their world remains whole because of what you make, even if the songs forget your name. In peacetime, you'd expect a calm life, but as a blacksmith, peacetime is a curse. War fills your forge with work, swords, armor, horseshoes, coins. During strife, your days overflow, but your belly is full. Once the fighting ends, though, orders vanish. The soldiers are gone. Only farmers stop by, bringing onions or stale goods in exchange for repairs. You become an endless negotiator, trying to turn back-breaking work into a bit of food feeling nearly invisible. And let's not talk of raising prices. People ask, "But aren't you just hammering?" As if shaping metal requires no skill. You start to miss the chaos. Not the destruction itself, but the certainty of being needed, the steady demand and purpose that kept you going. Back in peaceful times, you make latches for doors no one locks. Patch up pots so old they're ready for the scrap pile, mend broken tools, all the while watching the cupboards grow bare. Rest and safety for others mean worry and hunger for you. Secretly, you almost wish for a little trouble, because when swords break, you eat. Most jobs end with a task finished, a short applause, and maybe a bowl of warm food. Blacksmithing is never done. Each fix brings another request. Finish one wheel and 3 more break. Form a dozen nails and someone arrives needing a dozen more. You work before sunrise and finish long after sunset, and your mind keeps working even as you lay in bed. All clangs, all memories of jobs half finished and debts unsettled. There are never true breaks. Even Sundays, the supposed day of rest, become just another day if someone's ox cart shoe fails. You find yourself half awake in your apron, hoping the priest does not pass by and judge you. No matter how many tasks you cross off, there is always more work. The rhythm never ceases, and yet, despite it all, you find yourself caring deeply for this endless cycle. You might assume that a life spent forging metal wins you at least a decent meal and a night of sound sleep. Sadly, that's rarely so. Both food and rest are rare treasures, like clear water or a polite patron. Consider meals. You burn through more energy in a day than a galloping horse and find little but old bread, lukewarm porridge, and if fortune smiles, a scrap of salted meat. You eat quickly, sometimes one hand still gripping tongs, trying to dodge the ever-present ash. Meals are quick and quiet, and interruptions mean your food soon goes cold. As for sleep, or what little there is, your bed is a rough stuffed sack. Too lumpy here, too thin there, always housing something unpleasant. Blankets always seem to carry the smell of burns and regret. Just as you close your eyes, you remember another order left undone, a payment never collected, and sleep becomes a long negotiation with your thoughts. Then come the midnight urgencies, a loose horseshoe here, a storm-warped door there, a sword that must be sharpened before dawn. Your rest is interrupted. You learn to live on short, stolen moments, bites and naps, pieced together with sheer, stubborn will. In this world, work always comes before rest, and both eating and sleeping are pauses between hammer strokes. Your hands, once soft, are now your true tools, swollen and cracked, nearly numb except for when they hurt. Writing is nearly impossible. Lacing your boots takes time, but you can grip hot tongs as if pain no longer matters. Each movement brings some pop or ache, your knuckles battered, your palms a testament to years of effort. Blisters stack upon one another. Need to know the season? Count your blisters. More than 5 means it's warm. Nails have gone missing, some torn off. Once your thumb blackened for weeks, but you just swapped hands and carried on. Every week something draws blood. You patch it up quietly and keep at your work. Burns, sometimes small, sometimes severe, mark you as thoroughly as the cattle you sometimes shoe. Despite all pain, your hands feed you. They craft the blades, repair the locks, shape the hammers that earn your daily bread. It simply doesn't matter how battered your body grows, as long as you can grip a tool. Your scent? Let's say you stopped being clean a lifetime ago. From the moment you took up the trade, you've carried an unshakable aroma of burned wood, hot meat, and smoky metal. You could wash, in theory, but water is always cold. And the next morning, you'll be covered in grime before the sun's rays reach your door. Your clothes, always the same. A scorched shirt, A tough old apron, unwashed since last year's celebration, and even then, someone likely spilled ale on them before noon. Your very presence clears a path through the tavern. The innkeeper knows to seat you near a window for everyone's comfort, but you endure it. Better to be noticed, even for your smell, than ignored completely. People know who you are. They say, "That's the blacksmith," with both unease and respect. Smelling like the forge proves you work. Carrying the scent of burnt iron means you build. So your mixture, sweat, soot, and long days, means you are skilled. You didn't choose the life. The life was passed to you, as the hammer was passed from your father, and will one day pass from you. Think of your own child. Barely 7, already bringing coal, working the bellows, holding tools steady beneath the falling sparks. The guilt is there, but it sits quietly. In your heart, you know you are not harsh. You are teaching survival. Each lesson, how to judge the color of heat, how to tap with care, how to listen to the metal, shapes him. You try when you can to offer a kind word or a treat. But kindness can't last too long in this world. Soon, his hands will look like yours. His back will ache before his voice changes, and he will wake up before dawn without needing to be told. One day, as your body begins to fail, your knees locking, your hands trembling, your arms too tired for the hammer, the forge still roars, but you must let your son take over. He becomes the new face people seek. His scars are new, his bones just learning the craft's aches. You sit, you watch, you answer his questions, proud and a little lost. You were never wealthy. You owned no land, wore no finery. But you were essential. You kept swords sharp, wagons moving, gates swinging, and fields working. Recognition was rare, but your labor kept the village alive. You may not see 50. Few blacksmiths do. Yet your legacy endures. When you are gone, your work lasts. The nails in the chapel, the swords on a noble's belt, the horses that still go out to pasture. You leave no gold, but your tools, your scars, and your child with a hammer remain. People will bury you simply. No grand display, just a name, maybe, carved into timber with the forge burning on in memory. But every echo of hammer against anvil, long after you're gone, is your story continuing. You were not a knight, nor a noble, but without you, the armor, the plows, the bread ovens, the beams and hinges, none would last. Your life made quiet, sturdy music. Your tools touched every corner of the world you knew. While noblemen argued and rulers changed, you stood by the glowing coals, day by day, building bit by bit, 1,000 unnoticed things that held lives together. Yours was a noisy world, but your legacy is silent. No songs were sung for your tools, but every working door, every blade that held strong, every barn that stood proud, those were your songs. Others saw only smoke. Inside you heard the intricate music of heat and metal, creation and resolve. You didn't just forge iron, you helped forge the pattern of civilization, one careful strike at a time. Even today, as your name fades, your work remains. The hammer passed down, the techniques and scars woven into the next hands. You were never celebrated in story, but without you, nothing moved. No one prospered. Beneath all history, you were the warmth and spark that transformed raw ore into progress. You weren't simply part of your world. You kept it alive and turning. Long before alchemy was tied to secretive European laboratories, before robed figures whispered over bubbling vials, it was sacred and ancient. The true roots of alchemy stretched not into medieval Europe, but back to the shimmering Nile in ancient Egypt. Here, transformation was not a scientist's trick, but a holy law woven through all things: birth, life, and death. The Egyptians had a word, chemia, born from chem, meaning the black earth, the rich, fertile soil. To Egyptians, black wasn't just a color. It meant possibility, nourishment, matter filled with potential. Even the very ground became a symbol of nature's power to change and renew. Thus, alchemy was first born in Egypt. But to Egyptians, it was not merely about changing cheap metals into gold. That fascination would come in later ages. Instead, theirs was a world filled with transformations, preserving bodies for eternity, creating sacred oils, mixing minerals, crafting elixirs. Each act was a sacred echo of nature's changes. True alchemy for them was spiritual at heart. Outer change began with inner understanding, a wisdom that would echo down through distant lands and centuries. Some stories say the first Egyptian alchemists were guided by a god, Thoth, the ibis-headed lord of wisdom and the moon. Legends told that Thoth revealed the secrets of making and remaking, of passing the soul through trials, all written down on a legendary relic, the Emerald Tablet. But the core truth remains. Alchemy wasn't born in search of gold, but as a mystery of life itself, the first fire that all others sprang from, a chain of learning that would wind from Egypt through Persia and to the wider world. Thoth was more than a god. He's the symbol of balance, order, and secret truths. He was thought to be author of thousands of books containing divine insight, most of which mortal eyes would never see. Yet one tiny fragment would change history. The mysterious Emerald Tablet, a riddle carved in green stone, barely more than a dozen lines, but holding a universe of meaning. Its first lines are famous. As above, so below. As below, so above. This simple phrase implies the whole universe is reflected in each part, the heavens in the soul, the stars in the forge. Every change in a workshop echoed in the cosmos itself. The tablet did not teach steps for turning lead to gold, but urged people to believe that all can change. Everything can be improved. Nothing is fixed. Not just metal, but also wisdom, disorder, or even the human soul. It talked of the one thing, the source from which all existence arises, rising from earth, coming from sky, carrying the power to unify and change. Over time, some said this one thing was the fabled philosopher's stone. Others called it spirit, or life itself. But perhaps the real mystery was that only the prepared, those wise in heart as well as skill, could ever truly grasp its meaning. As Egypt's power faded, its secret began to travel, moving along trade routes through the hands of scribes, dreamers, and warriors, to Persia, where alchemy would be forever changed. In Persia, alchemy mingled with new ideas, most of all, the teachings of Zoroastrianism, a faith built on the struggle between pure light and darkness, order and ruin. For Zoroastrians, fire itself, especially the sacred fire that burned on their altars, stood for truth, wisdom, and spirit. This devotion to fire would shape early Persian alchemy. Amid this blossoming world, there lived a Greek-Egyptian thinker named Zosimos. In Roman Egypt, around the 3rd or 4th century, Zosimos wrote not just about furnaces and elixirs, but about inner transformation. In his visions, he imagined himself melting down, burning away his own imperfections, like metal in a furnace, before emerging changed. To Zosimos, alchemy was not just chemistry, but a path of growth and purification for the soul. He wrote in symbols, lions, spirits, vapors, all describing an inward journey. He stressed that knowledge had to be earned through discipline and struggle. Much of his writing was lost or misunderstood, but his idea became lasting. Alchemy must change the person as well as the material. Zosimos planted the first deep roots of spiritual alchemy, an idea generations ahead of his time. As these old embers flickered across Egypt and Greece, a new center of learning rose, under the golden banners of Islam. Between the 8th and 13th centuries, as much of Europe struggled in darkness, cities like Baghdad and Cairo became sanctuaries for learning, debate, and experiment. Here we find a legendary figure, Jabir ibn Hayyan, often called the father of chemistry. He worked under the Abbasids in the 8th century, treating alchemy as an organized science, experimenting with distillation, crystallization, and new apparatus. Jabir invented many new methods, improved acids, and wrote text after text combining philosophy with dedicated research. But Jabir did not abandon the spiritual heart of the craft. He believed the universe contained 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water, each infused with spiritual properties. His system wove together numbers, astrology, and symbols, insisting that outward change was always joined by an inner one. For him, metals, like people, could be balanced and brought to perfection. Gold was not just a color, but the sign of matter balanced in harmony. Achieving this balance was the alchemist's challenge. Over time, his texts crossed borders, translated into Latin, spread throughout medieval Europe, and sparked fresh curiosity everywhere they arrived. In Jabir's work, alchemy found its firmest footing, a discipline both scientific and sacred. While scholars in the Islamic world gathered and advanced ancient wisdom, Europe clung to distrust and old habits. But ideas have a way of moving, especially when they burn with promise. Piece by piece, alchemy made its way into Europe, passed by translation, travel, and quiet persistence. Bridges formed in places like Alexandria, then later Toledo and Córdoba, where Muslim, Christian, and Jewish scholars translated Arabic writings into Latin and set old flames burning anew. By the 12th century, Europe, hungry for learning, seized upon these discoveries. Their effect was immediate, not just practical formulas but whole new ways of seeing the world. Monasteries hid strange manuscripts. Monks experimented, hoping to unlock not only purer metals but purer selves. In candlelit workshops, European dreamers became obsessed with a fresh idea: transformation. The thought that base metals might become gold was paired with the hope that the humble could become noble, the ordinary sacred. Famous works like the Assembly of the Philosophers and the Picatrix arrived, packed with alchemical and astrological wisdom. These weren't just recipes, but philosophies, quietly questioning whether anything in the world had to stay the way it was. The Church watched nervously, for if ordinary matter could be refined, perhaps so could anyone, perhaps even reaching beyond the bounds allowed by God. As centuries passed, alchemy's torch was picked up by European hands, burning in workshops, castles, and secret societies. The story continued. By the later Middle Ages, alchemy in Europe was transformed. It was now a sacred quest, with one legendary object at its core, the Philosopher's Stone. Rumored to possess the ability to change lead into gold and bestow eternal life, the stone captured imaginations everywhere. Yet among true alchemists, the stone was rarely seen as literal. It was a symbol, known by many names: the red stone, the elixir, the powder of projection. Some spoke as if it were a physical thing, others said it represented enlightenment or salvation. All agreed it marked the path toward perfect transformation. Alchemists believed the world itself was living, always striving for balance and completeness. Metals, they said, were not dead matter but evolving beings, led only awaiting time to become gold. The Philosopher's Stone would speed this natural process, just as the wise could speed their own journey to wisdom. European alchemists, like Albertus Magnus, Roger Bacon, and Paracelsus, spent lifetimes learning these secrets. They built furnaces, watched the stars, gathered rare minerals, and wrote secrets forever hidden in codes. Snakes, kings, dragons, all metaphors for the stages of both the craft and the self. The journey was called the Great Work. It began with darkness, breaking down the old self, followed by washing, finding light, and finally, rebirth. The stages had strange names, but each reminded the alchemist that true change could not be rushed or faked. The lessons were hidden because true wisdom, they believed, was not for all. Only those who were ready would see it. In time, alchemy slipped into the shadows. Once debated openly in temples and courts, now it was carried in whispers and puzzles, to evade scrutiny and protect its secrets. Church leaders sometimes embraced alchemy, seeing the analogy with resurrection, but also sometimes condemned it, fearing a path to spiritual growth outside their guidance. As suspicion grew, alchemists wrote and spoke in symbols, burying their knowledge in coded societies like the Rosicrucians, who promised ancient wisdom handed down since Egypt. The Freemasons borrowed similar ideas, focusing on inner change and building a better self. Alchemy's truths were passed quietly, often in books without words, or written in hidden, playful language, meant to be seen only by the initiated. This secrecy was both shield and silent tomb. Alchemy survived in the quiet corners, taught from master to apprentice, master to student, ever evolving but never fading. But times change. By the 17th century, a new era was unfolding, the Age of Reason. The veils of mystery and story that once warmed alchemy were now brushed aside for the cold demands of fact and proof. Chemistry took shape, a science focused on what could be measured and repeated. Many early chemists had begun as alchemists, but left behind the spiritual goals. Now, the search was for knowledge alone. No more hidden codes, no more mention of dragons and suns, just scales, minerals, and careful record-keeping. A great turning point came with Robert Boyle, who in 1661 wrote The Skeptical Chemist. Boyle made the case that nature could be explained in terms of tiny particles, that transformation could be understood without magic or myth. And so the era of alchemy faded, making way for something new. But the roots of modern science are still tangled with iron and fire, soot and longing, the legacy of those who, in chasing transformation, dreamed not only of gold, but of perfecting the world and themselves. He didn't ridicule alchemy. Rather, he removed the layers of obscure wording that once shielded it from outsiders. Boyle trusted in the alchemist's ability to transform, yet he insisted that this power be described through the laws of nature, not poetic riddles. Not long after, Antoine Lavoisier would reveal oxygen's vital part in fire, toppling the ancient story of 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. The periodic table would soon follow, and the lab transformed into a new kind of sanctuary, devoted not to secrecy, but to learning. Alchemy, with all its veiled symbols and mystical language, began to seem old-fashioned, even an awkward reminder to serious scientists. But here lies a strange truth. Chemistry's very roots are tangled with those of alchemy. The tools, the methods, the deep urge to explore. They were all born in the furnace of that earlier tradition. Alchemy made the way so chemistry could surge ahead. As the world shifted, as industry grew and efficiency became the watchword, unanswered riddles lost their place. Nations poured support into research labs, not into secret societies. The philosopher's stone faded away, and in its place came glass slides and gas flames. What was once holy grew practical, yet not everything passed away. In hidden places and quiet hearts, alchemy continued, not as a science, but as a sign of change, a thread binding matter and spirit, a symbol of the timeless dance between them. And as science answered more questions, some people still searched alchemy for meaning, because certain flames never truly vanish. They glow gently under the surface. Alchemy disappeared from the halls of science, yet it wasn't destroyed. It changed, just as it always said must happen to all things. What began in Egyptian tombs, took shape in Persian fire temples, and was shielded within medieval manuscripts did not simply vanish. Instead, it branched out, becoming chemistry, psychology, medicine, and even shaping what we call modern spirituality. Its outer clothing dropped away, but its inner message lingered. In the 20th century, a different sort of alchemist appeared, one with a journal instead of a crucible, dreams instead of a furnace. Carl Jung, the Swiss thinker, uncovered alchemy's secret teachings and gave them fresh meaning. He believed the old alchemists weren't only seeking to purify metals, they mapped, without knowing it, the human mind. The darkened stage called nigredo became depression. The whitening albedo was sudden understanding. The reddening rubedo marked a coming together of the self. Jung thought the true philosopher's stone was the long journey to becoming whole. So perhaps alchemy was always about something deeper than turning lead to gold. Today we see hints of it everywhere. Guides to transformation in self-help books, heroes changed by their trials in stories, and even in words we use. Refine, distill, purify. These are echoes of the old path. In science itself, alchemy's heart survives. Chemists change the nature of elements within reactors. Physicists search for unseen building blocks, speaking with a quiet excitement like that of past seekers gazing into the unknown. Maybe, though, alchemy's greatest gift is its reminder that nothing exists alone, that mystery and knowledge, soul and substance, belong together. True change in the world, it teaches, must start within. Every experiment, no matter how small, asks silently, who do you become as you work and learn? In an age of speed, technology, and the precise calculation of data, alchemy still quietly murmurs that to alter the world outside, you must be open to change inside. And so, the fire isn't gone. It waits, glowing quietly in the hearts of those who dare to be changed. Alchemy was never only a way of making, but a way of seeing, a mirror reflecting what is possible. At first glance, Cappadocia looks like something from a dream, its surface marked by tall stone towers and flowing ridges shaped by time and wind. Visitors gaze in wonder at the beauty above, but few realize the true miracle lies hidden below. Deep beneath the land in this part of Turkey, there stretches a secret world, a tangle of cities built underground, weaving for miles. These aren't simply caves or rough shelters. They're entire towns, hidden beneath the earth, with homes, chapels, wells, storerooms, stables, even classrooms. Some reach down as many as 18 levels, once sheltering thousands who lived their lives away from sunlight. The most stunning detail: many of these underground cities were completely unknown until just a few decades ago. In 1963, a homeowner in Derinkuyu, while making changes to his house, broke down a wall in his basement. Instead of more soil, he found a tunnel, a passage that led to another, then to a chamber, then down a winding staircase. By accident, he'd discovered an entrance into one of the world's greatest hidden metropolises. It seemed as if an entire society had vanished below, leaving behind only stillness and darkness. And Derinkuyu was not alone. Over the years, those studying this land have found hundreds of such underground sites throughout Cappadocia, at least 40 major cities, joined by thin hallways and secret escapeways. These places weren't random hollows. They were carefully arranged, cleverly built. Heavy stone doors could close off a corridor, sealing it from within. Air shafts funneled breath from the surface, while deep wells drank from natural water hidden underground, so even during attack, the people below had what they needed. But why build such wonders far beneath your feet? This question lingers, unanswered. Were these worlds created to hide from enemies? Were they retreats for meditation or shelters from some forgotten disaster? The reasons are lost to time, but one thing stands clear. Cappadocia was much more than a region. It was a sanctuary, a world under the world, where thousands could vanish from sight yet keep their way of life intact. And, astonishingly, the further you descend, the more incredible the story grows. To know why people shaped these cities beneath Cappadocia, we must first understand the land itself. This is no ordinary ground. Millions of years past, fierce volcanoes gripped central Turkey, layering it deep with ash. Over eons, this ash became a soft, porous stone called tuff, easy to carve, sturdy to keep shape. Rain and wind worked upon it, sculpting fairy chimneys and toadstool towers. The landscape looks not of earth, but of dreams or distant worlds. Yet the ancient people did not merely marvel at the rock. They made it their own. Those who settled here realized the volcanic stone was a blessing. With careful hands and simple tools, they drew homes, places of worship, storehouses, and entire communities from its body, no wood or brick needed. These stone rooms stayed cool when summer burned above, stayed warm as winter bit at the land. Cliffs held churches above, but true magic thrived below. At first, it might have been little more than a cave, a place to store food, escape the sun, or weather a storm. But as dangers grew and families multiplied, so did the caves. They became rooms, then levels, then great networks. Once digging began, it almost never ended. Whole societies moved beneath, not in chaos, but with purpose. Passages tied kitchens to homes, wells to stables, sanctuaries to meeting rooms. Clever shafts pulled in fresh air, spiraling staircases wound downward, wide enough for both people and their animals, but always snug, always easy to defend. What's truly remarkable is how long these cities may have been here. Though much was added during the Byzantine Age, some experts believe the earliest sections, particularly in places like Derinkuyu, go back to the days of the Hittites, some 4,000 years ago or more. The land called for shaping, and the people answered, patiently, skillfully, choosing survival above all. For them, the earth was not simply something to stand on. It was a shield, a fortress, an upside-down sky filled with quiet secrets. But what, we must ask, were they hiding from? That brings us to the next part of this journey. Below the quiet streets of Derinkuyu, something astonishing waited, a city not built above ground but stretched deep beneath it. No one had any notion it existed until that fateful day in 1963, when a man remaking his house knocked down a wall and looked into a nameless tunnel reaching into the dark. The passage led to rooms connected by further corridors, with stairways spiraling ever downward. The explorers who followed reached level after level, until they stood nearly 20 floors underground. There, they had entered Derinkuyu, the most expansive and deepest city carved below Cappadocia, and perhaps the world over. What was uncovered defies belief. This was no emergency hideout, no hurried shelter. This was a functioning city, given form by patient chisels and dreamers' hands. It held living quarters, churches, gathering places for meals, wine and oil presses, spaces for storage, places for teaching, and even special rooms for ceremonies. At its fullness, it could have sheltered 20,000 people, together with their animals and supplies. The designs were clever, huge round doors that could roll into place and seal a hallway. Built from stone, these were crafted precisely so they could be moved by those inside, while being almost impossible to shift from the outside. Air shafts, running high through the earth, carried freshness even to the lowest places. Wells reached water unseen on the surface. There was even evidence that children studied here, a schoolroom with benches, showing that life below wasn't only about survival, but also about teaching, faith, and community. Yet the mystery of Derinkuyu lingers. We don't truly know who made it first, or why. Some believe that early Christians, running from Roman or Arab pursuers, expanded these towns. Others point farther back, to people of the Phrygians or the Hittites, building centuries before Christ. What could have driven people to go to such great lengths, moving whole lives underground? Was it only to escape other humans? Or was the fear something beyond our understanding? Inside Derinkuyu, there are no writings, no names etched into the walls, no certain timeline. Just rooms within rooms, and still so many questions. Even in our time, much remains locked away and unexplored. The deeper one goes, the more it feels less like a city and more like another world. Building downward brings challenges unlike any other task. There is no sunlight, no scaffolding or open expanse, just compact rock and utter shadow. Even so, those old architects did more than dig. They arranged everything with care, so thousands could live below for weeks, even years. These cities were not tangled burrows made in fear. They were well-organized, layered communities. Each level had a special purpose. Homes near the ground, for quick return to the air. Deeper layers held kitchens, workshops, storage, and animal pens, set to limit fire and spoilage. Perhaps the most impressive feature was how they let air flow freely. Long, straight shafts, carved from surface to the lowest floor, drew fresh air all the way down. No electric fans needed, only gravity and good thinking. Water, too, was vital. Cities grew around underground water. People drank from wells that attackers couldn't reach from above. In some places, well openings at the surface were blocked, so enemies could not spoil the water. Thin tunnels linked smaller chambers and whole neighboring cities. When danger came, the earth itself became a safe highway for messages or people to travel unseen. Defenses were simple, yet effective. Hallways narrowed, so only one person could pass at a time. Trapdoors, blind corners, and hidden ways out added further safety. Most famous were the rolling stone doors, huge circular blocks that could seal a corridor in moments. From the outside, they looked like solid walls. From within, they served as shields. All these decisions reveal one thing. These cities were made for long-lasting survival, not just for hours or days, but for whole seasons when the world above turned dangerous. This brings us back to the heart of the riddle. What kind of threat demanded such careful planning? Was it ever truly gone? For hundreds of years, researchers have wondered, just who or what were the people of Cappadocia hiding from? What sort of peril makes entire communities leave the light of the sun? Not briefly, but for real, continuing life as normal below the earth. Most believe the answer is war. Across history, this central part of Anatolia was a crossroads. Assyrians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans all fought here, as did later empires. Later on, attacks by Arab armies made Christian villages retreat beneath the ground, their only hope to endure while danger swept overhead. But there remains a contradiction. The complexity and deep planning of these underground communities suggest they were never the result of fear alone. They were not dug quickly or in haste. They took decades, perhaps centuries of thoughtful labor. Some lower levels might stretch back even before recorded history. maybe to the days of the Hittites or earlier. Beyond that, history falls silent. There are no clear writings or carvings, no sure evidence of who first chose the earth over the sky, or what exactly they sought to avoid. Here, theories multiply. Maybe these labyrinths were built against more than armies. Maybe they sheltered from nature's disasters or cosmic events, or even memories of ancient warfare that left the skies and land changed. Some even suggest the cities were made to escape beings spoken of only in legend, the sky visitors or destroyers found in stories from many lands. If you look at the cleverness, in the way air shafts are hidden, the tunnels shielded, the doors disguised, it's easy to feel the designers tried to become invisible. Perhaps in their minds, what threatened them did more than invade. It hunted, it searched, and to be found was not an option. Most of these stories remain as guesswork, but they point to the same deep puzzle. No matter how many rooms and tunnels we reveal, we still do not know who built the first city, or what they truly ran from, or if they ever found safety when all was done. Imagine life, not for a few hours, but for months, perhaps years, entirely underground. No sun, no green, only stone walls, the flicker of fire for light, and the hush that blankets the world below. For many in Cappadocia, this was daily reality in troubled centuries. Yet within those shadows, life was far from stagnant. It moved with careful rhythm. Families shared clusters of rooms. Meals were prepared in kitchens on lower levels, where smoke vented harmlessly away. The sharp scent of fresh bread, mingled perhaps with the earthy smell of stone and penned animals, filled the halls. Churches and chapels, carved with crosses, offered places for prayer and solace. Some were painted with pictures and stories. People did more than merely survive. They worshipped. They practiced cherished traditions. There were community rooms for gathering, for lessons, for children to learn. Long corridors echoed with voices and footsteps. Light came from little oil lamps, their glow scattered through the winding walkways. Cleverly designed passages carried both air and lamp smoke to the top, so it never stifled those below. Life underground was no easy thing. The air was close, the darkness unwavering. When silence came, it seemed total. Water was drawn up from deep, hidden streams. Grains were kept safe in sealed storage, safe from rot. Archaeologists have found remains of wine presses and oil vats, hinting that even out of reach from the outdoors, people enjoyed the small rituals, the taste of wine, the smell of fresh oil. These towns were meant to last. They weren't a desperate fix, but a careful reality. Animals, goats, sheep, chickens were kept close to the surface, where their warmth and food could be shared. By doing so, the people ensured food and, in colder months, a little extra heat. Despite the close quarters, the builders understood how to protect minds and hearts. Homes were separated to allow for privacy, but open spaces fostered a sense of belonging. Beneath the surface, these weren't merely places to hide. They were places to preserve a way of living and the spirit of a community. It's a powerful thought. Even as battles raged above, entire cultures endured in silence below. There, people married, raised children, mourned the lost, all in quiet rooms, lit by flames. Underground living, then, was not a surrender to fear, but a deliberate, dignified choice. The underground towns of Cappadocia were not scattered refuges, but part of something larger. Hidden under the valleys and rocky hills, a secret network of tunnels and hallways stretches on and on, linking city to city, making a web below the ground. Some of these corridors run for kilometers, thin, winding, and just wide enough for a single person to pass. They weren't just for quick escapes. They likely carried people and supplies between different cities, even allowing whole populations to support each other in times of trouble. In some places, two vast cities, Derinkuyu and Kaimakli, are believed to be connected by a tunnel almost 9 kilometers long. That is no ordinary feat of building. It shows planning and cooperation on a scale not often seen in the ancient world. If the network worked as people now think, then cities didn't just survive alone. They formed a true community beneath the ground, working together even as the surface was unsafe. The passageways themselves were built with care, not just for moving quietly, but for defense. Low turns, narrow ways, pinch points where an invader would have to walk in one at a time. Many could be shut with stone plugs or hidden doors, closing off a city in moments. Even today, we're still learning how vast this world might be. In 2014, construction workers unwittingly exposed a whole new complex under the city of Nevşehir, bigger perhaps than anything found before. Experts suspect it has layer after layer, endless tunnels, shrines, streams, all waiting to be mapped. So, what were these tunnels for? Not just secret escape. The evidence suggests the groundwork for a society that could exist, unseen, as if the earth itself was their cloak. Each new discovery tells us that Cappadocia's underground is more than a scattered handful of hidden rooms. It is a planned, concealed system that may hold even more secrets, sleeping just beneath our feet. After decades of digging and wondering, Cappadocia's sunken worlds still guard their mysteries. The walls cannot speak, yet the riddles found inside them ring louder than ever. The question remains, not just how people carved such cities, but why and when. When history falls short, legend and bravely imagined theories step in. One of the biggest debates concerns the true age of these communities. Mainstream experts argue they grew during Byzantine times, as Christians hid from danger. But some insist the tunnels and chambers are far older, perhaps dating back 4,000 years or more. If that's true, what kind of danger drove people underground in such distant ages? Here, theories multiply. Some say the cities were built as shelters from disasters, floods, great storms, times when the sky grew dark. The way the cities are planned, self-reliant and closed to the outside, fits the idea of refuges made for hard times. Others think differently. There are those who claim ancient records suggest these underground spaces were to shield people not from earthly threats, but from visitors or forces from the heavens. Those described in myths as gods, powerful beings who ruled from above. Could the towns have been built to protect against something not from this world? One old story speaks of giants roaming the surface, pushing human beings to hide below. Others tell of fire falling from the sky, or of enemies with burning eyes. Today we might hear these and think of fairy tales. But to the ancients, such stories explained what words could not. There are also ideas that turning to the earth symbolized something spiritual, that by moving into the rock, people were enacting a journey of death and rebirth, crossing into the world beneath before returning again to the light. No single theory, though, answers every question. The incredible scale, the deep age, the careful design. These cities may resist explanation for a reason. Perhaps the truth is buried not just under stone, but outside the boundaries of what we usually imagine. Now, as tourists wander through Cappadocia's otherworldly scenes, over valleys carved by wind, past stone towers glowing at sunset, and under skies filled with drifting balloons, they seldom stop to realize that the surface is hollow. A whole world rests below, carved in shadow and silence. These ancient cities are now open to visitors, who climb down narrow stairs, pass through low halls, and stand in rooms once filled with quiet hope and patience. Yet, only a part has been opened. Some chambers are still closed, some paths lost to darkness, some doors leading nowhere. What endures? Not just abandoned stone, but a message, left not in words, but in lasting work. We may never know the names of those who built here, may never hear all their stories, but this much is clear. They were organizers, builders, believers in the long view. They made something to last through centuries of silence, perhaps something meant never to be found at all. Cappadocia reminds us that the deepest truths may not rest on the surface, but safely hidden by purpose or by need, away from prying eyes and the reach of time. What stays with us is mystery. Mystery in the fit of a door, in a whisper of wind down an ancient shaft, in tunnels too old to count. Perhaps we will never fully grasp why these cities were built, or what they truly sheltered. But standing inside, feeling the weight of earth above and the hush all around, something ancient rises to greet us, a feeling not of fear, but of quiet strength. Because when chaos raged above, the people of Cappadocia looked down and chose to endure, in darkness, but together. And the earth itself, it seems, has kept their secret safe. In the eyes of the ancient world, sleep was not an escape, but a gateway, opening into mysteries deeper than everyday life. Dreams were not treated as idle thoughts or random images. Instead, they carried importance, sometimes warnings, sometimes glimpses of the future, and often messages from gods or spirits. For those early cultures, the division between the visible and invisible was never sharp. At night, that barrier faded, and dreams became sacred territory, filled with marvel, sometimes with dread. In the quiet of sleep, it was thought that the divine could step into human lives, sending messages that might influence a ruler's choices, guide the performance of a ritual, or change a city's path. In almost every early civilization, from the great rivers of Mesopotamia to the temples of Egypt and the hills of Greece, dreams were honored. People believed they were being visited not by their own minds, but by real forces whose words and visions carried weight. A dream could signal conflict, reveal treachery, offer a cure, or call for a sacrifice. To turn away from a powerful dream wasn't foolish, it was seen as dangerous. The dreamer worked as a messenger too, a vessel briefly touched by higher truths. Sometimes, such a dreamer became a prophet, chosen to bring the words of the gods to others. Entire professions were devoted to unlocking dream meaning. Priests, seers, interpreters, all practiced in the art of reading strange symbols and hidden signs. In one dream, a snake might mean change or peril. In another, a rising sun could be hope or mischief. Each culture made its own code, yet the core belief remained. Dreams had deep meaning. We still hold on to fragments of that ancient view. We speak of following dreams or waking up to new realizations. But for those who lived long before us, dreams were not poetic flourishes. They were maps, warnings, sacred wisdom delivered while consciousness slept. That was the world before modern science, before sleeping patterns and brainwaves were studied, where dreams were treated as real, and to dream was to walk with the eternal. The Sumerians, living thousands of years ago in Mesopotamia, were the first to leave us written records of dreams. To them, dreams didn't rise from restless thoughts. They were considered direct links to the gods. These dreams could be complicated, filled with symbols, carrying great significance. Among the remains of their cities, experts have found clay tablets filled with dream accounts. Some were personal, some about the fate of whole towns. The art of interpreting dreams was far from a pastime. It was a skilled craft, handed down and respected, especially by kings. Sumerian rulers depended on special advisors who could unravel the messages encoded in dreams. These readings could change the path of the whole city. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the most ancient stories we possess, gives a vivid example. In it, both Gilgamesh and his friend Enkidu experience powerful, mysterious dreams before they set out on their great challenges. Gilgamesh dreams of stars crashing, mountains toppling, visions that his mother and the temple priests treat with utmost seriousness, reading them as hidden guidance and warning. The Sumerians divided dreams into two kinds: those sent by gods to teach or help, and others that were empty, perhaps only leftovers from waking life. Knowing the difference took skill. It was the work of wise priests, trained to see the signs hidden in the night's pictures. Temples often had quiet chambers where priests or rulers would sleep, hoping for a vision. This practice, later called incubation, might have begun with the Sumerians. Sacred dreams were like oracles, often trusted more than what could be seen in daylight. Even so, dreams served other roles. If a ruler claimed to have received guidance in his sleep, that could give him authority, show he was favored by the gods. In the Sumerian view, everything was layered with meaning, and dreams were one way the universe spoke. Each picture, a storm, a wild animal, a flash of fire, was more than what it seemed. In such a world, turning away from a dream wasn't just neglect. It risked the anger of the stars themselves. In ancient Egypt, dreams were not only taken as messages, but as passages, doorways to the gods, previews of the afterlife, and practical instruction. Here, obsessed as they were with eternity, sleep was a rehearsal for death, and dreams were opportunities to receive guidance from beyond. Egyptian writings show dreams classified into truth dreams, which brought healing or warning, and false dreams, seen as confusion or from illness. There were temples, like those of Serapis or Thoth, where people practiced dream incubation, sleeping with purpose in the hope of a sacred vision. These dreams were often remembered and recorded by priests, sometimes even inscribed onto stone. Some believed that a dream could bring not just a message, but a cure. One of the most interesting finds is the Ramesseum Dream Book, an ancient scroll listing over 100 dreams and their possible meanings. Some entries spoke directly. A man dreams of eating crocodile. He will overcome his enemies. Another warns, drink warm beer in a dream, prepare for sadness. Such readings were woven into the fabric of court and temple. Kings, generals, and priests all paid careful mind to those skilled in decoding the language of sleep. Egyptian myth spoke of the Ka, or soul, which was thought to leave the body during sleep, traveling to the worlds beyond. Sometimes it met gods, sometimes lost loved ones, sometimes brought warnings back to the living. Nightmares, too, had their place. Seeing a troubled dream might mean a spirit was angry, and prayers or protections would be spoken to guard the dreamer. Even in the tombs, dreams show up, rulers describing how a god spoke to them at night, blessing their rule or giving special advice for the future. Dreams weren't tricks, they were glimpses into the forever. In old Greece, dreams balanced between healing, myth, and the beginnings of philosophy. Here, dreams were not just personal, they reached into the cosmos, as if sent by gods, spirits, or ancestors. But the Greeks also began to wonder, why do we dream at all? This was the dawn of thinking about the mind. The holiest place for dream revelation was the temple of Asclepius, the god of healing. Pilgrims from all over came to sleep in these sacred places in hope of a curative vision. The ritual began with washing, prayer, fasting, getting body and soul ready to meet the divine. In such dreams, perhaps Asclepius himself would appear, offering advice, suggestions for cures, or performing dream healing. The priests who served here listened carefully each morning, interpreting dreams and prescribing care based on the god's advice. Many believed these cures really worked. So many reported healings that the temple walls were covered with thanks. Yet, healing wasn't the only purpose of dreams. In Homer's poems, dreams come as direct interventions. Zeus sends Agamemnon a deceptive vision in the Iliad. In the Odyssey, Penelope tells of two gates for dreams, one of truth, one of lies. Over time, interpreting dreams became an honored skill. Philosophers like Aristotle and Heraclitus asked the first questions about their nature. Were they gifts from beyond, or simply thoughts of the soul? Later, Artemidorus of Daldis wrote The Interpretation of Dreams, a handbook full of examples, tailored by a dreamer's role in life or gender. His wisdom was sought for centuries. For the Greeks, sleep released the soul from the confines of the body, setting it loose to travel where waking reason could not reach. Dreams, whether sent by gods or rising from within, were always more than chance. For them, dreaming was a step into something wider and brighter. To those in the ancient world, dreams were not echoes, but prophecies, portals where past, present, and future seemed to meet. It was as if, in sleep, tomorrow's shape might press outward, offering warning or encouragement. Through Sumer, Egypt, and Greece, leaders, soldiers, prophets, even ordinary citizens paid careful attention to what the night might reveal. One wrong reading could end a kingdom. One right nudge might change a whole age. The Sumerians documented dreams of heavenly omens, dark stars, rivers of red, treating such visions as hints of disaster or shift in power. Egyptian pharaohs staked their right to rule on dreams. Thutmose IV claimed the Sphinx itself spoke to him one night, promising leadership if he freed its body from the sands. Whether true or told for politics, that story helped confirm his reign. For the Greeks, dreams came before battles, before changes in law, before journeys. Oracles sometimes dreamt as part of their rites, and even legends like Alexander the Great listened closely if a god appeared while he slept. Of course, prophecy was not reserved for the mighty. Ordinary people searched for signs in dreams, warnings about sickness, news of births or marriages, or signs of coming loss. Artemidorus's great manual included pages of such dreams: lose a tooth and fear the death of kin, fly and expect change. Dreams hinted at destiny, giving people, even those with little power, a way to grasp the patterns of fate. Yet, such faith brought worry too. What if one missed a message or mistook its meaning? For those long before us, to sleep was to be silent only on the outside. Inside, it was a conversation with destiny. Healing in ancient times was found not only in plants or remedies, but in dreams. Blessed sanctuaries, called dream temples, were scattered throughout early civilizations, places where the sick sought not only human care, but help from beyond. The best known were the sanctuaries to Asclepius in Greece, but Egypt and Mesopotamia had their own, where hopeful pilgrims looked for visions to guide them to wholeness. These temples did not promise immediate escape from pain, but invited people to sleep, to prepare for a dream of healing. The rite was called incubation, a seeker purified with fasting, washing, even humble offerings. Then, in special chambers, they laid down and waited for the night, praying for a dream. When it came, it might show the god himself helping, or a snake, sacred to Asclepius, curling gently around the sleeper. Some saw themselves bathed in radiance, or touched by invisible hands. When morning came, priests gathered to listen, to interpret the signs, to recommend a cure. Sometimes the dream itself was all the remedy needed. Words of thanks and awe, etched on the walls, speak of lost pain and restored sight. Egyptians brought their suffering to the temples of Serapis, and ancient Sumerians sought help from the goddess of healing, Gula. All these places point to a single belief, that the boundary between body and soul, health and spirit, was thin. The most important healing might come in the hush of night. In these sanctuaries, dreams were not just gentle stories, but medicine, sometimes the greatest of all. Among the many gifts of dreaming, the rarest was perhaps the chance to meet those lost to death. Many ancient cultures believed sleep made the wall between the living and departed thin for a time. To dream of someone who had died was not just longing. It was considered a real visit, a chance for true conversation. In Egypt, where eternity was never far from the mind, dreams might bring the dead with requests, warnings, or guidance. If a loved one appeared unhappy or complaining, families offered prayers and gifts, hoping to settle any unsettled issues. Sometimes messages were written to the dead and left in tombs, so they might answer in visions. Sumerians treated dreams of the dead with awe and care. Such visits could show that something had been overlooked, a promise broken, or a need unfilled. Rituals were performed afterwards to make peace, cleanse the spirit, and keep harmony. The Greeks, too, respected dreams of the departed. In the Odyssey, we see the hero journey to the underworld, speaking to spirits as if in a dream. Heraclitus once wrote, "While those who are awake share one world, each sleeper turns aside to a world of their own." In that nightly world, the lost could come back, if just for a little while. All around the world, such beliefs endured. To dream of a loved one gone was not poetry. It was real and urgent, evidence that bonds persist, even across the lonely line between life and afterlife. For ancient people, dreams were not clear speeches, but puzzling codes, symbols, strange animals, impossible situations, heavenly signs. They believed these were hidden messages, needing careful reading. Across Sumer, Egypt, and Greece, special interpreters took on this sacred work. They memorized signs, knew many traditions, and decided if a dream was important. Their words could influence health, politics, even war. Though symbols changed culture by culture, many appeared across time. Snakes hinted at risk or growth. Fire might warn or cleanse. Flying was an image of escape or hope. Egyptian dream books listed hundreds of possible signs. Drowning meant oncoming trouble. Being blind meant seeing a difficult truth. These were not just guesses, but lessons handed down through generations. In Greece, Artemidorus carefully explained that context was everything. A sailor dreaming of a flood saw something different than a farmer saw in the same dream. His great book was ahead of its time, hinting that even our personal experiences shape what dreams mean. Dreams were often woven together with omens, signs drawn from daily life. People kept records, not always for themselves, but for family or their town. Dreams were a language, sometimes confusing, always rich. To learn to speak, it might bring fortune or reveal the soul's deepest wishes. Today, dreams can seem trivial, slips of the mind. But for the ancient world, they were never casual. Dreams brought comfort, guidance, healing, even the hope of meeting the dead or hearing from the gods. Over time, though, as science rose, dreams were reimagined, not as sacred, but as something born from nerves and chemicals, or the mind's processing of daily events. Symbols became data points. The miraculous faded into the ordinary. Yet even now, in dark hours or moments of change, dreams still tug at us. The old respect lingers. A dream of someone missed becomes a way to close a story. A nightmare may tell us more about our worries than we admit aloud. Modern psychology has tried to bring back some of what the ancient world believed, seeing dreams as more than noise, but less than prophecy, powerful all the same. Perhaps the deepest wisdom is what the ancients always believed. Dreaming is not separate from life, but a mirror, not reflecting only wishes and fears, but perhaps, now and then, reflecting the eternal. Whether it was a God speaking, a warning about tomorrow, or the small comfort of hearing a lost voice once more, dreams gave something priceless. A chance to speak with the unknown, to touch what cannot be explained by daylight alone. What we may have lost is not only the belief, but the trust to listen to what sleep can teach. Across the ages, one certainty has remained. Dreams are not just tricks of the mind. They are doors. And the real question is not whether what we see in them is real, but whether we have the courage to step inside. All across the old world, inscribed in temples, written on scrolls, we hear the same gentle reminder. Pay attention. Close your eyes. Not to shut out the world, but to truly understand it. Because in the stillness of night, when noise gives way to quiet, we might recall what those much older than us already knew. Dreams are not just echoes. They are the voice of the soul,